Hello, everybody. And I mean everybody. I mean, it's just, everybody that's on the Facebook, that's on YouTube, on Rumble. I'm trying to get my numbers up on YouTube and Rumble. I wish you guys can help. This is Strange Reality with Dave Emmons. And I always have interesting guests that have a lot of background in what they're doing. And I have a guest today that has that. He's been studying for a long time and he's got several degrees. And some of and kind of forgive me for some of these $10 words that I'm going to have to try to read off here, but no, he's a nice guy. He's from California, and he. It's a beautiful state, but things are going on there that just doesn't make it so beautiful. But I love it. I've been in California several times. I got married in California about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, Doctor,
All right.
at Fairfield, California. Yeah.
Oh, Fairfield. Oh, that's up by Sacramento, isn't
Yeah,
it?
right. It's
Yeah.
about 50 minutes south of Sacramento. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And on this show, as you know, and I thank you and appreciate everybody that follows the show and watches the show. I'm going to try to cut down the show's time periods because I think a lot of people on the internet have limited time and they just don't pay a lot of attention to the internet. And actually the 1.5 minute glitches or the shorts, I call them, uh, they actually get more attention than the long shows do. So I want to do an hour, and we're going to try to break it down that way. And also, my narratives are going to be a little shorter, so people can read them real quick, the topics, and also my guest background and their qualifications. And tonight I'm talking to Dr. Robert J. Newton, and he has a bachelor's in speech and English. He has a JD in law. So we've been talking a lot of stuff off air before the show, and we got into politics and some things that's going on in the country, and we both agree. But I don't know how much we'll get into that because if you talk about one side, you're in trouble. If you talk about another side, you don't get in trouble. And I think the doctor knows what side you can talk about that you won't get in trouble for. So,
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. I've been censored on Facebook and YouTube. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's one side that you can't talk about. So I try not to talk politics, but I try to talk policy and what's going on in the country, and also disclosure with the ETs and everything. And he's a doctor of natural medicine, a third level Asclepiad,
Asclepiad. Asclepiad.
Asclepiad. Okay, thank you. That's a $5 word. I should have got that one.
Yeah, that's a Greek word.
Yeah, a certified. Yeah.
From Asclepius,
Oh, it's a location.
an Uber healer from Greece who healed with herbs, and then one day he had an epiphany. Realized he could heal through lucid daydreaming. So maybe we'll talk about that too.
Wow, this guy here, people, he's got a lot of stuff that he knows about. He even goes back to knowing stuff about ETs and everything. But he has so many other things here, and also he's a certified into the highest levels of Kriya, Kundalini,
Yes,
pranayama, and Tai
yoga.
Chi, and multiple healing protocols. He is a teacher, lecturer, motivational speaker, and certified in theta, consciousness healing, and mind reprogramming systems. His weekly radio show is Solution Revolution. If you had a chance to see that, I'll give you information on that show on in the narrative after the show, or the doctor may want to talk about it. He is an author of 11 published books, including Pathways to God, A Map to Healing, and he has a map to healing revisited, the hidden codes of God. I'd like to hear about that. Beyond the mist of time, when trees ruled the earth. That's when they were huge, I guess. They've been finding the stumps. In
Yeah. Well, that's when there was more carbon and more warmth in the atmosphere.
yeah,
Because carbon is a growth stimulator. These Nimrods that are, you remember how 20 years ago Ozone Al said, oh, the ocean level is going to rise 2 feet and Florida will be underwater.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
How did that work out?
yeah. That worked out. Yeah, in search of the body immortal, we're all interested in that. The immortality prophecy. and Planet of the Stupids. I guess we're loaded with that now. A
Yeah,
Nation of Deceit. We're into that. And In Search of the Hidden Codes of God in the Mathematics of Gematria.
you
And
got it right.
and natural herbal remedies. He specializes in life extension and immortality protocols. Oh, wow. So you'll extend everybody's life. You'll give us some secrets about that. I wanted to show you, I guess, a part of his book. Uh, this is one book that he's got out,
Oh, yeah, that was the second book.
second book, and it has to do with physics of the immortal light body and the creator's template of perfection and abundance for his people. I've been looking for abundance, doctor, and I'm not getting it. So,
Well, I just learned some things. We'll go over these things. They call them mudras. This is from my Kriya Kundalini yoga and Hinduism.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
uh,
Okay, Dr. Robert J. Newton, I'm turning it over to you. You open up and tell us what you're doing now and what you're interested in, and what are you going to do when you grow up? Okay.
well, now that is, oh, um, well, I was going to say something. Oh, the Solution Revolution isn't going anymore, that program, but there may be archives of the shows. And after that, I did artist artist first radio. I did what's I don't think about, and Hollywood Talk Radio and one other. Oh, and I did Voice America as well.
Oh, wow. That was
So
America.
um, so
Okay.
right now, I'm concerned. Both Dave and I are concerned, and we know each other a little bit. And I think we found each other from our each other's posts and everything like
That's
that.
what it is.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
So that's how I call people.
Yeah.
And even if you're beautiful, if you if you don't have the cachet to go with it, the knowledge, the most important thing is to keep your mind open. And the one thing that I found out is people will fight learning new things.
Hmm.
And it's not because they're bad or dumb people. In my case, my mind was pretty open until I was like 35, and then I was T-boned by another motorcycle at a dirt motorcycle park. The guy was probably going about 55 or 60 miles an hour, and the way he hit him probably should have killed me, even though I was wearing a helmet. And I almost wished he did because I hurt every place on my body. But there's one of the names of God, Reshai Ayin. It's Hebrew. Um, it says finding the good and the bad. So I found a lot of good in that painful experience. And I always say, if you look hard enough, you will find the good. And in fact, if you really took a hold of your mind, you would see only good. I don't yet.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get pissed off at some of the things I see
Yeah.
in the government
Yeah. Right.
and religion.
Right. Talking about conspiracies and related to religions and government and elsewhere. That's one of your lines in your
Yeah.
talking points. That's I guess that's a good point to start on. And I think a lot of religions are blocking people's open mindedness. They
Oh,
you know
something fierce.
yeah. Talk
Something
about that.
fierce.
Tell us about that, Doc.
Well, I want to just finish up. So,
Okay.
so about the openness, but bring me back. Don't let me get too far astray.
Okay.
Um, the thing with the subconscious mind, you have to learn to rein it in, and if you don't, it will run your life. There's this really book I really love. I never finished it. I didn't need to. I knew what was all in it after I'd read a third of it. It's called The Untethered Soul.
We lost your volume, your voice.
Am I back?
You're back.
Oh, I hit this little button. I didn't even think of what I was doing. My subconscious mind must be objecting to this information that I'm going to share.
Yeah, you're
And
Bach.
so,
You're Bach. Okay.
so, um, whenever you come across one, I'll tell you what I do, and then I will hope you might follow it. But I would also say to you, don't believe anything I say just because I say it, even though I wouldn't be saying it unless I was substantially sure that it's correct.
Mhm.
If I'm not, I'll talk about things I've got intuitionally, but from what's called the Akashic Records, which is all the information of everything that's happened on Earth is stored in this big computer. It's talked about in the Keys of Enoch by Dr. J.J. Hurtak. And when I first read that, I was just thinking, Dr. Hurtak is cuckoo, cuckoo, because, but now I come to see as I understand atoms and how they comprise everything and how they're all interrelated to each other and thus interrelates us to each other, even if we don't like what each other is or says, we're still irretrievably connected. It makes a lot more sense about this. And there were these really intelligent people, the Theosophists, Annie Besant, C.W. Ledbetter, Alice Bailey, and another one. Oh, Madame Blavatsky was probably the most famous. And they use that to do all kinds of things. Her and Ledbetter actually diagrammed the atom 100 years before our venerated scientists found out about it. So that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
So that's off the topic. Take me
yeah.
back. What did you want
Okay,
me to?
the history is not what we think it is. It's been a big lie, uh, all the way from the Tartarians. That's an interesting situation there with Tartarians. No, we were talking about earlier for the show the conspiracies related to religions and government,
Yeah.
and the governments with the conspiracies that are going
Oh.
on right now. A lot of
Oh.
stuff is going on. Could you talk to us about what do you think? I asked you what you feel, and you said, "No, I don't feel. I'm a scientist, so I have to have facts." Okay, turn loose with those facts, doctor.
Well, I use evidence. I was trained in intercollegiate debate, and I was debating against guys that have been doing it all through high school. And where I was in Pomona, California, we didn't even know what intercollegiate debate was. And then in law school, the same thing. When you're taking your exams and you're taking the bar, you have to give both sides of the argument so that because that's what you can only really know everything unless you look at everything, even if you don't like it. And it might actually help you. It probably will
Yeah.
help you from finding it. Um, well, in religion, you and I were talking about how that they've actually led people astray. And I'll give you one example. So I wrote this book. This is one of the books I wrote in search of the elusive Mary Magdalene.
Okay, Mary
And I
Magdalene.
didn't.
Yeah, I'm interested in what she did and who she was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Pope Gregory assigned her in 1550 or thereabout as a prostitute.
Mhm.
Nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah.
As I found out from the writings of Edgar Casey, who I trust as a source since from the ARE, Association of Research and Enlightenment, most of his stuff they've been able to verify all the medical stuff. So that's really heavy, and the stuff that he talked about Atlantis is coming true off of Bimini and Maxine Dr. Maxine Asher was finding big stone megaliths in the ocean off of Spain. And when she went back to try and do more research, the Spanish government wouldn't authorize the permit. So that shows that she hit the jackpot, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't want that information out.
Right. She's the
That's
one
how
that.
they keep us controlled. They
Yeah.
keep us
Right.
controlled by limiting the information, but also as well as and I was also using Gnostic Christian texts, which are called non-apocryphal texts, which means those are the texts that aren't in the Bible that should have been in the Bible, from my estimation. If you wanted real truth, you would put those in there. So by them not being in there and them being extant and felt, which means existent. They were found in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, and they were found at two other locations in Greece. So we can and they all cross verify each other. If So in the Gnostic text, there's a text called the the Gospel of Mary, and that's believed to be Mary Magdalene, and by a biblical researcher. God, I just had her name in my head. Oh, I'm angry at myself. Well, um, she talked about that there's little pieces of stuff in there that actually showed that Mary Magdalene was Jesus's wife. Now the Christian church right now, man, they would go ape shit if you said that, because
Yeah.
Jesus was supposed to be,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
he's God itself. Well, I don't think that can be proven that way.
Yeah.
And these same people that talk about uh, Jesus being God and then Jesus dying on the cross. Well, I know he didn't die on the cross, even though I don't have any text per se to show me. But I know that when he was in India, and this is in the Bashiva Purana, an ancient Indian text, and also in another text called Telugu, um, Jesus was there for many years. He was in I'll tie this back to Mary Magdalene. I'm on a tangent here.
Yeah.
It was in Egypt, Greece, Tibet, that place between Tibet and India, uh, that country,
Nepal.
Nepal,
Yeah.
and northern India, and it's it's known that he was there. In fact, there in that book, the Bashiva Purana, I think they predicted that a son of God or an Ishaputra would come there 1,500 years before they actually arrived at almost exactly the time that they predicted.
Mhm.
And and so and oh, the Isha Masai, which this is Sanskrit, is the son of God, and the Ishaputra is this. Well, let's see. Oh, the Isha Messiah is the Messiah, and the Ishaputra is the son of God. And so he knew all of this stuff that I put in my book, the Immortality Prophecy. Jesus knew more that and even more. And I'm from as you said, I'm from a deep lineage. I've been doing this for 40 years, 10 years before I even knew what I was doing.
Mm.
I was doing the pranayama, and which is a very extended breathing regimen where you breathe in as much as you can, then you breathe out twice as long. And what that does is bring enlightenment to you. It brings you, like when you're writing a book, it's so easy. It's like fun. I like to write books. To
Yeah.
me, it's fun.
Yeah. Selling them
Most
is,
writers,
I've been finding out selling the books is the hardest part. I
yeah,
mean,
me
working,
too.
I,
Me
yeah,
too.
that
We
I want,
need to get we need to get someone to promote our stuff because it probably lines up pretty damn close. Because I'm into all that ET stuff. That's
mm.
I got deep into that, and I'm still keep my mind open and looking for more things.
Dr.
Uh,
Robert, tell us about Lady Magdalene. I heard
yes, I'm gonna go there.
she
Go
was
ahead.
smarter than Jesus and she knew more, and they were both ETs. Can I say that? And
Well, that's interesting because we definitely can say that with Jesus, and I would say by inference we could say it by the Magdala or Magdalene. Jesus and a William Henry wrote a book called what was it? I'll get it in a minute. That Jesus was from the land of Seth, and as I've gone back on my meditations, I think I'm from that place too, and a lot of evolved people are too, including Hermes Trismegistus, who is also known as Thoth, and also known as Merlin, also known as Quetzalcoatl, also known as Tahuti, and all the major civilizations that were there at the time. Um,
now
just
I think you mentioned in your notes here, we go back to the book of Enoch. We'll get to that pretty soon. But I wanted to get this part of it, linguistic arithmetic of Gematria, and the 72 names of God to add clarity to things not able to be deciphered otherwise. The 72 names of God, what do you mean by that, Dr. Robert?
Okay. Again, these didn't make it into the Christian Bible. Okay.
Mhm.
But they're in the Torah. And it's in Exodus 14, verses 19 to 21. And if those English scholars had even read that, their heads probably wouldn't have, the heads probably would have been exploded. They probably wouldn't have known how to interpret it. But a rabbi or what those other ones, um, a rabbi or a biblical scholar would know that. And these, I'll show you a picture of them.
Were these high priests?
I mentioned one of those names earlier in our discussion, Resh Ayin, finding the good in the bad.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
found, I found, and I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't trying to make, I wasn't trying to make gold from lead. I found a key in here, which I put in that book, Pathways to God, that blew my mind. And I didn't even, it was, I'm just kind of going like, what the hell? What the hell? This is cool. It was about 15 names. I use it as a healing regimen and everything. It starts out with um, Resh Chet, which is connected to the light. And then, well, maybe we should do that another time. I don't know. Uh, we could do a whole show just on
Yeah,
this.
yeah. The 72 names of God. I'd like, there's been they call him Yahweh and all this other stuff, and Enoch had names for him. What
Yeah.
are the 72 names of God, and what is the real name of God? Right, Dr. Robert?
You know what? I think there's places where Jesus said that was unknowable. And I've heard other scholars that I respect that said, yeah, that name is unbeknownst to us.
Mm.
Maybe in heaven we get that name. You know, we go back and forth from heaven to earth, and where the hell? This is kind of like, I mean, we got to get back to Mary Magdalene, but let me
Yes, I want to hear. I
do
want
this
to.
as it's coming to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, what was I talking about?
You were talking about getting back to Mary Magdalene.
No, but before that.
Oh, you were talking about Jesus saying the name of God that we wouldn't know it until we got there on the other side, and I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. A lot of people think that you just come here once, and if you are here just once and you're a master and you're a lucky son of a bitch, you don't have to listen to, you know, false teachers. I'm sure you had them along the way. I'm sure I did. I was blowing my parents' minds the things I was telling them when I was 5 and 6 years old. And they were just like, and both of my parents were left handed. I think I picked them because they were. And I thought people would understand me, but even my parents didn't.
yeah.
So if a left handed person doesn't understand another left handed person, uh, they're not really, really open. They're not really using all of their
What type of things were you telling your parents that blew their mind back then?
Well, the one thing, I'm sitting in Bethel Baptist Church in Pomona, California in 1951, and I just been to Sunday school and I was taught how God is love. I'm going, yeah, this is cool. I believe this. Then I get down. I had to go to listen to the sermon of the minister, and he's telling me how I'm going to go to hell I don't accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Master. And I didn't have any problem with accepting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Master, but I had a real problem at even 5 years old, even though I didn't have the vocabulary I do now of a loving God sending me to hell for
Mm.
my sins.
Yeah.
And yeah, and this is the thing. This is where you get into the manipulation of the churches. They've made sin this really horrible thing, right? They talk about it all the time today.
Mhm.
Okay, so I went back and I researched and I found out what the word sin meant at the time of Jesus. And that word didn't mean anything like what it means now. It meant ignorance. It meant not doing better, but no capital crime, right? Nothing
Right. Mhm.
like that. So this just shows you how they'll take words. And since I have a degree in speech, we studied linguistics and all of these things, and general semantics and things like that. And I realized from that first words are very ambiguous, which is why the gematria is so important. And I learned that words mutate in their meaning, and they always have.
Yes. Yes, they do.
But
There actually wasn't a devil either. They didn't really talk about devil,
no,
and they didn't
no,
talk about. They
there's
didn't
no
talk.
place in
Yeah.
those Gnostic texts. Uh, in this Mary Magdalene book, there is a. Oh, there it is.
That is in search of.
There. Yeah, there is a text that I found as I was writing it. I found it before I was done. So what I went and did is I actually went and and copied the text. It's called the Gospel of the Sophia Jesus Christ, and Sophia is feminine, and that would relate to Mary Magdalene exactly.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. I can't say that Mary Magdalene was smarter, but she wasn't any dumber or less divine than Jesus. But she never would have been accepted by as a Messiah. Which uh, this this book this text pretty much tells you that. It doesn't tell you that exactly, but if you accumulate, it's like about 10 pages of the hardest 10 pages I've ever read in my life. I've read it 10 times and I'm just starting to understand it a little bit, but it's salient, it's germane to everything that's going on. I was talking to one of those Seventh Day Adventists, and they were really nice. They invited me to their barbecue down at the beach, and I wasn't hungry. I said no, and I said I was talking about it, and I was telling them about it, and the guy said everything you need to know is already in the Bible. I said this text will tell you
Yeah.
a hell of a lot otherwise,
Okay.
and you have to have tenacity to read this
Yeah.
because this is intense. I had to keep looking up words. I have a huge vocabulary, and
Okay.
I had to keep looking
Bottom
it up.
bottom line, Dr. Robert, who was Mary Magdalene? Was she an ET? Was she an angel? Did she come here to meet up with Jesus and help him?
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure of that. You have good instincts, but I don't have any specific assignation that she was an angel, but I've known a few angels on earth, and from what I could find out about her, she was so she was very humble, but she was from a family of money, so she got a really good education, and she was super smart, and she was very cautious around men, and I found out why as I was reading those psychic readings by not Rudolf Steiner, uh, who was incredibly smart. He was also one of those theosophists people that I was talking about, but he left them because he was smarter than all of them. He had more ability.
Now,
Uh,
didn't Jesus study with that group of Gnostics? And that's where and then he
yeah, with the Essenes.
yeah, yeah.
And I cover that in the beginning of the book. That's how I almost start the book out. I think I started out with him being in the temple with the rabbis that were amazed at knowledge beyond his years, as it says there. Then I take it to that, and then I take it out. I also use the Aquarian Gospel of Christ, which I think was a channeled book, but psychically, I know it, from the first time I read it, I go, God, this guy really knows what he was talking about. And that's before I knew nearly as much as I know now from my own research. That Jesus was upset because the rabbis had built a wall around their teachings from which no one was supposed to look above. And so he knew he was at a dead end there. And another thing, isn't it interesting how Jesus was never taken by the Jewish people, even though there's several mentions of a Messiah that was coming in the Old Testament. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact citation. I think one it was in Ephesians. And, but that's easy to Google that and find out. It would say, so she was uh, absolutely essential to Jesus's mission. In my book, she gets credit for that. I wanted to say more. At the same time, I knew I could only go so far because there's people with this tunnel vision, and they it's only Jesus. Mary Magdalene was just there to uh, cook and clean.
And did Jesus and Mary Magdalene end up in India? That's where they lived out their lives.
uh, there's some narratives of that. Oh, that woman that I was going to tell you about, her name is Dr. Karen King. Thank God I remember her name so I can give her tribute. That's making me cry. I'm upset at myself because I didn't have her name. But she's the one that found the text. It wasn't completely intact, but with the computer, they could tell that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married. Now, whether they went to India, I couldn't find that much, but I know that in the New Testament, Jesus tells Thomas, doubting Thomas, he tells him to go to India and spread the gospel. And I don't know exactly where Thomas went, but I know in Kerala, India, 18% of the people are still Christians to this day. So that would require an intense ministry,
Mhm.
don't you think?
Yes, yes, it would. Now, you were talking here further on, you deciphered otherwise, and the Rosicrucians, and
Yeah.
that's a religion now, actually. Are they more open-minded? Like, I guess also you have uh, the other people, the other religions that are here that are more open-minded about listening to other things. Like they have a different way. They found the Mormons found Jesus in a different way, I guess, in a gold.
Yeah, I know. And they're demonized. They're demonized because they've made that chip, just like when I found Christian Science in 1961, and a Sunday school teacher that turned me on to Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures. It verified all I said about God not sending us to hell. And I was so damn happy. But boy, people didn't like it. I have a friend whose wife, anytime I bring up her name, Mary Baker Eddy's name, man, she gets really nasty and tries to insult me. And I just like deflect deflect it off like this and keep going.
Yeah.
And she's a really good person, but you know, because that's the way she was taught stuff. That's the way she wants to believe it forever. I wanted to believe that ultraviolet light, the flashlights that I sell, kill all bacteria and viruses. And I was sure of it from the research I was getting. And then I got some other research and it says, no, it doesn't kill all the viruses. So am I going to stomp off and get all pissed off because that goes against what I already do? No, I'm going to take it in and admit it doesn't. Because you don't do yourself any favor by deluding yourself to keep your narrative
Yeah.
intact.
who is this Dr. Paul Foster that you talk about? The patterns
Doc,
on the
Dr. Paul Foster Case, he was a Rosicrucian.
board. Yeah, and with the trestle board and the Book of Enoch to substantiate the points as well as your books. Does the Rosicrucians and Enoch and this Dr. Paul Foster, did he research these subjects, Dr. Robert?
Oh, he was an amazing man. My deceased uh, wife was all over this. She dragged me into it, and once I got into it, I got sucked in. That's brilliant. This was a man. He was in the original Rosicrucian group, and they were doing white magic. And he told them, and he was like second in command. He told the leader and the leader's wife that they were going to get suffer death if they didn't stop doing it. And the guy he predicted that would suffer death did. And then the wife got all pissed off at him, so he left and created his own group called the Builders of the Adytum, but it's still Rosicrucianism. And the patterns on the trestle board are, well, I don't have my copies buried here. I have a very bad habit of just piling stuff up. That's what intelligent people do.
Yeah, yeah, you take a lot of notes and then you don't know where they're at. I do that myself. Let's get
Well,
in.
I found my notes today.
Okay,
We're probably not going to get to too much of this stuff, but that's okay. Well,
let's
I
get.
know we'll be talking another time.
Okay,
So,
yeah. What about the Book of Enoch? Could you tell us a little bit about that? A lot of people want to avoid that.
yeah, I know.
It was also kept out of the Bible because
Yeah.
it was actually telling ancient history. And
Yes.
yes, and so who was Enoch? He also a
Okay.
9 foot tall? He was 980 years old or whatever. Was he an ET, Dr.
He
Robert?
was probably in a state of immortality. Actually, that's one of the Enoch was one of the. There was one person. Remember how I talked about Thoth and Hermes Trismegistus and
Right.
all those people? He was also Enoch. This was a guy that knew mastered space and time. He could bilocate or even trilocate. He could be at two or three places at the same time,
Hmm.
which is a pretty good trick. I've done it once a little bit, uh, or more than once, but just a little bit. Um,
How do you do that?
Enoch was well, Kriya Kundalini Yoga helps. I do workshops in it. It stuns me how few people get want to learn probably the best thing that they'll ever know. People asking what's the best thing you've ever done, it's the Kriya Kundalini Yoga. And my wife also dragged me into that. She says, "Oh, let's go to hear this yogi. He knows all about Kundalini." And I said, "Kundalini Schmundalini. I've had many Kundalini experiences, but I decided to take her there because she wanted to go so much." And I got there, and the first exercise he gave us to do, I, I had a Kundalini experience, and my teacher Govindan Satchidananda, Yogi Govindan Satchidananda, said, "Oh, you were in samadhi, weren't you?" And I said, "Yeah," because he saw all this energy coming in.
Yeah, so actually Enoch practiced those yoga type of things. It's Kundalini.
No, I don't think he did. I think he learned from the Hermetic traditions of Egypt,
Yeah, and also the ET.
which is a whole nother system. And
Yeah.
they have something there that's kind of similar to the Kundalini. Uh,
Well,
I'm
then
trying to
you
think.
have Enoch, you have Methuselah, and Noah.
Yeah,
Noah was in that line of
yeah.
yeah.
The lineage, there were like about 10 or 11 of them that were like 900, and there were a few that were in their upper 800s that are listed in there. So this is the interesting thing about the book of Enoch. One of the interesting things, one of the many. The book of the book of Enoch has Archangel Michael, who was at the top of the tree of life in the highest heaven, the heaven of the very highest angels. The ninth dimension is the high angels. and the highest angels are in the 10th dimension. And all of those people on the tree of life, including Gabe, Michael, Michael took Enoch sequentially through the heavens, and he describes it. And that's how I can say authoritatively, like Christians believe they go to heaven. Yeah, well, my question, which heaven are you going to go to? Because
Right.
there's many that were
Right.
listed as Enoch was taking him up there.
Yeah.
And even in one of the higher dimensions where it talks about how the fallen angels were there, they were trapped there until God was ready to see that they had reformed or something like that. But he takes Enoch through all of these successive heavens. So Enoch achieved the status right next to Archangel Michael on the tree of life right below Yahweh, YWHW, which might be the name of God, but most people don't know how to say it because Hebrew has no vowels in it. It's only consonants, but you have to say vowels to say the word.
Right.
So if you they spell it Yahweh, and that's okay, but it's not technically correct, but vocally it's correct.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
and then you also have Archangel Gabriel. You have Sephiel and Ariel up there in those highest level of angels. But that's just one system. The Hindus have all of their gods and their sons of God.
Mm. Yeah.
But
There's so many different beliefs here on this planet. It's just confusing. And I think wars are caused by different religions and beliefs.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, the Crusaders went down into the Holy Land to get the Muslims out, which they did after several losing many lives, and then the Muslims retook that area. uh, yeah, there's been many wars over that, and they're all really stupid. But
What the code of God, how do we learn? I know you talked about Kundalini and you experienced that, and it's I'm gonna have to look up that more and talk to some of my friends about that because I'd like to take those kind of trips myself and get in more into meditation. But how what is this thing about the code of God and living longer, Dr. Robert?
well, these codes of God are different disciplines and things like that. This one guy who I learned gematria from, I was exposed to it. He thought he knew everything about it, but we had a falling out. That's one of those Rushian things, finding the good and the bad.
Mhm.
I know more than him, although he's at that time he knew more than me about it, and he kind of lorded that over me. But I've sent him some of my treatises, and he doesn't even have the discipline to read it. A code of God, it's just a way of saying disciplines that you can do, disciplines or codes, which is like the 72 names of God and like the patterns on the trestle board and all of those and even gematria itself because it gives you it reveals things that are completely beyond a dictionary or a thesaurus or any encyclopedia. It's blown my mind. It's expanded my consciousness at a level that I never could have done. And I was up there high, but there's always more to go. You never reach the end. You look like looking up at the mountain. You think you're to the crest of the mountain, but you're not there, and you got to keep walking.
Like Jesus called that his father has many mansions.
Yes,
What he meant to say is dimensions. I believe
yeah,
in that phrase. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah. What
And
now? Today we have so much strife and things going on. Do you see any biblical things that are happening right now, or is it just happening because it's supposed to happen? We're going from one dimension to another, third dimension to the fifth dimension, and people are
well, I think we'll go to the fourth first because most people can't even deal with the third dimension. Throwing them into the fifth dimension from the third is not going to be very comfortable for them. In fact, they'll be like a fish out of water.
Well,
And
we're almost like that now here on Earth.
yeah, well, we have everything we need, but you have these people running around trying to create doomsday scenarios like Ozone Al Gore. I knew in 1991 that 1990 that his global warming thing was baloney because I got a hold of this video from Dr. Eben Browning called Climate and the Affairs of Men, and he talked about how we were actually going into an ice age. And right now we actually are. There's retired U.S. geophysicists that have said so. If they said it when they were there under Biden, they probably would have gotten arrested. They'll lose their job, not
Yeah.
arrested, fired.
Yeah, right.
So
Well, it's hard to tell. I mean,
you know,
because
and
what
we were talking about Mary Magdalene and her significance cannot be underestimated. William Henry, also the guy that wrote the Secrets of Sion from that Gnostic text in the Vatican Library, doesn't have a name. He also wrote a book about Jesus's lost years that I just found out about yesterday, and he also wrote a book about Mary Magdalene, and I think he felt the same way about both of them, like I did. I've met him; he's not a friend, but I've talked to him before a couple of times.
yeah,
Uh,
they claim, and there's some latest, I guess, people with that are Bible scholars. They're saying that the people they say wrote the Bible, they didn't really write it, like Paul and John.
yeah, yeah, because what they say they were done written down 200 years afterwards, so it was coming down in an oral tradition, just like all the stuff in India was exactly the same way. They're
Mhm.
handing it down, and um, if you get a manuscript or something, yeah, they always say, well, this gospel is attributed to John, but there's no, well, no, they don't say that, but the skeptics do that there's no proof it came from that.
Mhm. Yeah. So are we heading towards the end of the world? Jesus said, and I wrote a book on angels and supernatural entities, and I saw where Jesus said, they asked him, when will be the end? And he said, only the Father knows the end of the world. And he said, it'll be kind of like in Noah's days when the end of the world came. He said there'll be giants walking on the earth. And so we're going to have giants walking on it. Are the Anunnaki or the
There,
Nephilim come
there,
back,
I
Dr.
think there
Robert?
still are some. Yeah, come back to that. I want to just make a comment. I think those Nephilim are down there in the South Pole where the Nazis went,
Mhm.
started colonizing in 1934 or 1935. There's there's traces of them being in Argentina. The architecture, there was a program uh, by someone I respect somewhat, but it was good scholarship, so I could accept it pretty much everything. So they're probably still there, and I'm sure they're there in Mount Shasta.
Yeah. Mhm.
When I was up there in Mount Shasta, they must have shanghaied me in there. I had these memories that had been suppressed, like they can do a mind sweep like they did on the astronauts so that they wouldn't talk about the things the buildings that were on the dark side of the
Right.
moon that have been really documented, really heavy. And I've seen enlargement of those places, and it's much more significant and grandiose than what it looks like on the normal pictures um, until they're computer enhanced. But I was inside of there when I was 12, and I saw really tall people. But it's come back to me in dribs and drabs because like they did they wiped it. They didn't. I think they knew I was a blabbermouth, and I would go telling everyone about their hideout in the earth that they didn't want uh, They didn't want people coming and camping out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know that the Antarctica is a very secret place, and you can't cross a certain line down there. They've got that very well secured, and
Yeah, well, Admiral Byrd flew into the North Pole, and in 1947, his writing of it seems very accurate. But he says that in '53, I think he tried to get into the South Pole, and he says that he was welcomed. But I found some accounts by his crew, and they said they encountered fierce fire, and they like got munitions,
Mhm.
weapons, and that they had to turn around, that
Yeah.
they couldn't get in. So yeah, there is a line there beyond which they don't want.
And do you think the Nazis and the ETs are together still to
Yeah,
today?
yeah,
Really? Wow. So the real society that was in Germany, they were the ladies of long hair, and one of them was
yes.
really
His
beautiful.
psychics, the
Yeah.
beautiful long-haired psychics, were
Right.
bringing through all this information. That's why I said if they hadn't have taken, if Chase Bake hadn't have taken his funding, they would have crushed us. They had that plasma weapon
Hmm.
down because the Foo Fighters talked about it.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe the Germans were the Foo Fighters, but the Allied pilots were saying it was terrifying.
Yeah. They
And
see these bright balls that coming by the
yeah,
planes and everything, but they didn't attack them. The plasma balls, whatever they were, uh, they call them Foo Fighters, I guess, but they didn't attack the planes, did they, Dr. Robert?
I think they did a few.
Did they?
That's why I'm saying they would have easily. It's really interesting too. You know how the Nazis are demonized, and yeah, they did bad shit, and you still have people doing those experiments, those genetic experiments, like the Nazis did. We took Us in Russia took all the scientists. We took all the research. That's how we got rockets into space. They used solid fuel from there. So we had Werner von Braun that used the oxygen fuel that was very explosive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Yeah, he's got that secret space program. You said something about that you knew somebody that was at Roswell during the
yes,
1957 event.
one of my first metaphysical teachers was Virgil Armstrong, and um, he told me, in fact, yes, there was a ship, and yes, there was a body.
Okay, and so he saw it himself.
Yeah, he was a major in the special forces. They needed, he was a really nice person, but I get the feeling that he was really a tough son of a bitch.
Yeah,
he was
normally
an
they
arm, he
they
was an
are,
army ranger,
right.
airborne ranger.
And some of the CIA people are pretty tough too. They are hard to get along with. I run into some of them that were ex CIA, but once the CIA, always the CIA. I think that's the way it is. Uh, Now coming to what we're coming to in this world, and we talked a little bit about policy and a little bit about politics, and this is just for entertainment purposes only. But how do you see all this panning out, Dr. Robert, after reading all these things about religion and all this research that you got into uh, and into yoga and meditation and things, Kundalini? Do you visualize what's going to happen now to this world, Dr. Robert?
If Earth goes into a fourth dimensional planet, which is right next to the third dimension, the space between the dimensions is very very small. It's much less, and other dimensions are like galaxies. They're flat, but I think our planet isn't flat, even though there's a lot of people that are pushing it is.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, it's and then we talked about that history is not what we think it is, and they've been lying to us, and they're
oh,
actually today keeping secrets from us. They're supposed to be disclosing, John F. Kennedy. They got thousands of pages they released, but
well, I
nobody.
already know what happened there. That
Yeah,
was already uncovered by that Jim Garrison. He opened that up like a bag of rotten fruit.
yeah,
There was more than one shooter.
yeah.
Bullets came from more than one direction. I can even give some pretty good insight into why he was taken out. Um, Lyndon Johnson was the perfect Illuminati replacement for John Kennedy, who was
Really?
a populist. Yeah,
No.
yeah. In fact, I think he was even involved. And it's interesting how he wasn't in Texas that day that Kennedy was shot, but John Connally, the Texas governor, was there, isn't it? Isn't it kind of interesting? Because you would have thought that the vice president would be there since he's a Texan.
Well, he was there. But he wasn't with John F. Kennedy in the convoy or
Well,
whatever the
that's what I mean.
motorcade. Yeah. But also old man Bush was there, the old Bush. He was there. And so
What, Prescott?
yeah, so no, not Prescott, but
HW.
HW. And also Nixon was there from what I heard. There's a book that's out. It was on Fox News the other night. This guy wrote this book and he said that there was three or four of those people there at the time that Kennedy got shot. And
Yeah,
he
I just found out about Nixon myself. I'm going, wow, that shouldn't surprise me. He's a pretty slimy guy. We couldn't stand him in college. We were always doing goofs on him. Uh,
You knew
but
Nixon, President Nixon?
no,
Oh, okay.
but I knew he kept me out from going to a surf spot I liked because he had a place there in San Clemente right next to a really famous couple, several surf spots. They closed them
Oh,
down.
I see. Okay. Yeah, but I think that this is so strange that they keep so much away from us. And that's why history is not what we think it is, because the elites have been hiding history from us. We don't really know what's really going on. And today, we really don't know what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. You hear all kinds of stories about what's going on in Ukraine.
I know what's going on in Ukraine.
Can you tell us, Dr. Robert, what you feel?
Yeah. In 2014, Yoshenko, who was the president of Ukraine, was overthrown because the CIA and MI6 wanted to install uh, their man, the dude called Zelensky, who's nothing more than a lousy actor and a pipsqueak.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I shouldn't make fun of short guy syndrome. Okay, just I'm like 5'11", so I should be contrite. I'm just trying to be funny. Anyway, this is when the money laundering started. All kinds of money was being laundered through there. The sex trade started through there. There's all kinds of underground tunnels there. There's there were until Putin had them wiped out 49 United States Army bioweapons labs. So to talk about the bioweapons lab in China is kind of ironic when there were so many more. Uh, so there was a big sex trade with the children, and that's something that bothers me immensely. And you talked about the blood, the blood when they scare them and then take their blood,
Yeah,
uh,
the adrenochrome.
adrenochrome.
Yeah, this is for entertainment purposes only. I'll repeat that during this
Yes, it's
conversation.
only entertainment purposes.
It's our opinion.
We're just conjecturing.
Yeah, our opinion, and they don't pay no attention to us anyway. The people on the street. Apparently, the politicians don't pay no attention to nobody. They just do what they want to do. But I think there's a lot of corruption going on right now, and they're finding it. And a lot of these politicians are getting very mad because what is it they say when you're over the target, you get more flack. Is
Yeah.
that right,
Well, you know
Doctor?
what? You know what else?
What's that?
There's $300 million that went there. We know that, but only 150 million can be accounted for.
Oh, we're
So where do
talking
you think that?
billions. There was something like 300 something billion, and there's 100 billion that Lewinsky can't account for. Yeah,
150 billion that it can't be accounted for.
yeah.
You know where it went? I know where a lot of it went.
It come
It
back.
went to U.S. politicians.
Yeah, it
In
come
the,
back.
in the amounts, I'm going to give in a range of 40,000, 30,000 to $100,000 regarding Mitt Romney, Nasty Nan Pelosi, um, Chuck the Duck Schumer, uh, even Kevin McCarthy, the Republican House leader.
Now we're getting this information from the news. Actually, they're listing their names. We can't prove anything, and we're
Yeah,
not.
I can't prove it. You're
Yeah.
right. I'm getting it from the news. I'm getting a lot of this from a site on Telegram called Epic Dude. If you want to stay current with what's happening, it's by a friend of mine, a personal friend, David Armstrong.
Okay.
Uh,
Epic dude, you say?
yeah, it's on Telegram.
Okay. And
And
they
I also have a page there called Manifesting Heaven on Earth.
okay. Now, does he tell the truth about things?
Yes, he does.
No. It's hard to
Yeah.
find the truth anymore. There's so much disinformation, misinformation.
Both him and his wife, Meg, they're very learned. She's very psychic, and I think he is too. He just doesn't admit to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, we are coming up to the bottom of this hour, if you can believe that, and
yeah,
it goes very
well,
fast. So I want you to tell us, Doctor Robert Newton, tell us where we can get a hold of you and how we can contact you, and watch you, Doctor.
I'm on Facebook, Robert.Newton3. I have a whole bunch of pages for my books on Facebook, including the Immortality Prophecy. I'm also on Telegram, and you can either contact me there or Dr. Robert J. Newton or through my site, Creating Heaven and Earth. I'm also, I have some YouTube. I have a YouTube called, where did I put? I put it on here, didn't I? Keep forget. Using the word consciousness as a key to immortality. That's a 5 series part, but I can only find two. I know part two and part five are on YouTube.
Yeah,
Maybe they didn't like what I said in the other three
I've been
parts.
I've been slapped a couple of times
Yeah.
by
I'm
YouTube.
also on LinkedIn, Dr. Robert J. Newton. That's a good place to reach me.
Right. Yeah, because you can talk about one side, but there's one side you can't talk about. If you do, you're in trouble. It used to be that way. Maybe things are going to change. Maybe the platforms are kind of freeing up with
Well,
with X.
Facebook said they weren't going to edit stuff anymore, and yet I just saw they deleted something that I put up yesterday. I don't even remember what it was, but it was. I knew it was controversial. I was wondering if it would survive the cut.
Okay.
I also have a website, www.drrobertnewton.com. But all you have to do is just go to a search engine and put my name, Dr. Robert J.
Mhm.
Newton, in there, and it'll take you to that.
Yeah, yeah, and they'll find a lot of milk cartons you're on, huh?
Yeah.
A missing
Well,
doctor, on a milk carton. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I collect water. I collect 1 gallon water bottles.
All
But
right.
I remember when milk came in bottles.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
I know you do.
With the little aluminum caps that you just kind of peeled off and popped back on.
The ones I got were paper.
Paper,
It had like
they
a
were,
paper
yeah.
thing, and then
Mhm.
it had a paper cover that was like squished around it. And then they started putting it in paper
Cartons, yeah. Mhm.
cartons.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, Robert J. Newton, thank you very much for doing the show. You've been listening to The Strange Reality with Dave Emmons. And thank you so much, Dr. Robert Newton, for being on the show. It's
Thank you, Dave Emmons.
it's been interesting, and I can appreciate we both go back about the same period of time, and it's
Yeah.
kind of fun visiting those good old days.
Well, everyone believes from that time that I know
Yeah.
that's still here. There's only 10 people left from my high school class.
Wow.
We all talk about how much better it was and how much more fun we had. And we did too.
Mhm.
I didn't need any of these new.
Right. I did too, but I'm losing a lot of my friends too. That just tells you how old we're getting. I want to thank everybody for listening in on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and Spotify, LinkedIn, and X, and iHeartRadio. That's where you'll find me. But I need my numbers up on YouTube and Rumble and Facebook. You guys treat me so good. I want to thank you very much for treating me so well on Facebook. Thank you from Dr. Robert J. Newton and myself, Dave Emmons, The Strange Reality, and have a good one.